Okay, so let me get down to business on why I'm making this video. Historians are supposed to analyze sources, be them primary or secondary, based on historical method. This is codified as a historical methodology and is generally accepted by the historical community. However, many historians don't question religious texts in the same manner, and so they ignore the historical method when analyzing them. This is a bold-faced contradiction and a face to historical research. Many historians have started to attack religious texts, mostly biblical mythicists, atheists, but why aren't more historical people going after the religious texts, like ancient historians, Roman historians, and anyone like that ilk? No Middle Eastern historian or Roman historian, Greek historians, people who could probably find pretty easily sources that pretty much say that the Bible or the Quran are historical documents. But we don't see a lot of that. No one's using historical methodology to challenge religious texts, and that's really a face to history. Especially since they do not fit as any secondary primary sources, and don't even classify as good a source. Unless you are researching dogma, religious books don't have the credibility that historical sources need. Many don't even have contemporary accounts, and many less can be held up to scrutiny. So I want Bible historians, creationists, literal Biblists, conservative Hindus, fundamentalist Islamists, historians of all branches to find me sources that can prove the validity of these religious texts. We must then use the historical method to scrutinize these sources and see if they fit the test as well. If they don't, people like Ken Ham, Adnan Akhtar, and others will abuse these sources as historical fact when they are little more than fairy tales from the Bronze Age and beyond. So what is historical methodology, and what do we use it for? Well, as historians, we use it to write papers, books, etc. It is simply a 5-step process that is very similar to the scientific method. There is primary research, which is where you start your trying to form your hypothesis. Once you have your research, you then form your hypothesis based on your research. Next, you research or refute your hypothesis, and you do this by validating your documents. Next, you must construct a thesis. And then once you have a thesis, construct the evidence, usually in a paper, a documentary, or whatever have you. Make sure that when you research and you refute your hypothesis, you don't try to change the facts so it meets your hypothesis. That is academic dishonesty. It is what creationists use in science, and we don't need this in history. You validate the authenticity of the source. Make sure it isn't a forgery and hasn't been tampered with. Is it accurate? And who is the source's writer? If it has an eyewitness or is contemporary, it's probably a primary source. If not, it's probably a secondary source. But I shouldn't have to tell historians this. What is the purpose of such a source? This is important because there is always bias. Always bias in a written work. And the same thing can go for accounts verbally or archaeological evidence, which I think can be used in historical context. The thing with religious texts is that they are dogmatic and lack real historical data to back up what they said. The New Testament, for example, was written, modified, abridged, codified, and edited over a course of 200 years, and many will say that the New Testament itself was written years after Jesus' death. So how can any of it be written by contemporaries? If you have sources that can prove this, please send them my way. This is the challenge that I want all of you to do for me. Give me evidence supporting the validity of religious documents. If you can't, then this will show that the religious texts are not usable as a source and should not be used as historically accurate information.